Hello, everyone. It's good to be with you again. Thanks for joining us in this another session on testifying of His power. It is always good to testify of God's goodness and grace, and that testimony always brings encouragement to each other. It always brings encouragement to those who are hearing the testimony, and I really hope that our next testimony will really be a blessing for you, as it has been for me and for those of us who have experienced it. I'm so happy to have with me today my dear wife, Karleen. And Karleen, I just want to say welcome to you.
Thank you for having me.
Right. And so Karleen will be sharing her testimony today of some things that has happened. So let me give you a brief background as to what happened. You know, I've been married for 30 years, and in my 30 years of marriage, I can think back, and there's only one time in 30 years of marriage that I can ever remember my wife being sick, and I mean, we didn't know what else to do. Of course, prayer was our only option. And so I want her to tell you the story. I want her to tell you the story of what happened, what the trauma that came in her life, and that was right after the was rolled out, and there was a lot of taking place. And this was one of her experiences. This is her experience of how this actually happened to her. And so she is first-hand testimony that this is the truth. This idea of is the truth. So, Karleen, bring us back to those horrific moments and really how that changed your life and really caused trauma like you've never experienced ever before. Over to you.
It's my pleasure to be sharing my testimony with you today. And as Brother Howard mentioned, we're sure that at some point, somewhere in my testimony, you will be blessed, you'll be encouraged, and you will be strengthened in your faith in depending on God for any and everything. So in November 2021, my mother died. After a very short, what you would call illness, she fell down like Friday. Upon the decision of my siblings, I took her to the doctor on Monday, and Saturday, she died. Before she died, my brother called me to say that my mother wasn't feeling well. As a matter of fact, she said, I feel like I'm having a stroke. So they decided to take her to the doctor. On the way to the doctor, my husband decided to use a test. He would just pop in and tell you what happened. So you can go right ahead.
Right. So I really had one of those oxygen sensors for the finger, and so I met him. I intercepted the ride to the hospital on the way, and I checked, and I think on her left side I had no reading at all. On the right hand side I had a reading. I recognized something has happened, like she had a stroke on the left side, but I didn't say anything because I'd still got some reading. She was still breathing, but almost like was out of it. So I told them to just hurry on, and what happened after, Karleen will continue.
Yes, so after that, by the time they got to the hospital, my mother died in the car. Very devastating. My next brother called me to say that Mom is dead. That was very, very, very shocking. I was almost out of my wits. I actually hung up the phone. I didn't say anything. So I was going through the pain and grief. That was Saturday night. And Sunday, I could not get out of bed.
Well, I think something did happen on Saturday night that by the time we got to the hospital, the body was in the car for at least, I think, about 2 hours before the police actually got there, because it's that kind of death. Then the police had to be involved to make sure that there was no foul play. So once we got there, we had to go to the hospital, and which all of us did. Um, her entire family was there, and I think she was probably missing that point of the so
So my family members who were living close to the hospital, they all came. And in particular, my cousin's daughter, I noticed that she came and she hugged me closely. She did not let me go. She cried with me. And anywhere I went, she was there. She just did not let me go. She was snug with me. And whatever happened, crying, she wiped my tears. And I mean, we were just close. She just did not let me go. And that happened for maybe around, say 35, 40 minutes. She just did not let me go until the police came and, took the statement, and then the coroners came to get her body. That's when she really let me go. And so, as I said before, Sunday morning, I just could not get out of bed. I was just beside myself. As a matter of fact, I did not sleep Saturday night, to the point where I decided I was going to call my sister. And when I called her, she was happy that I did, because she was in the same state like me. And so Sunday, I was in bed all day. I got out of bed like way in the afternoon, evening, but nothing was the same. I was completely different. And for a few days, I, said to myself, and I said to my family that, my mother's death, it has really taken a toll, not on me mentally, but physically. The first thing I noticed is that I started having very fast heartbeats, you would call heart palpitation, very strong. And then I started having cold sweats. Then I started having indigestion. And then I could not sleep at nights.
one of the things that and I'm sorry to just be interjecting here, but one of the things that I was concerned about was whether or not the I mean, yes, she is the firstborn. She is the first born for her mother, and she and her mother were very close. They had a very close relationship. But my thought was she being affected this bad? That's just my thought, as she was going through these different stages. So continue, my love.
So I started having indigestion, which resulted in I didn't want to eat, because I don't know what was happening to my stomach, what was happening to my gut. And one of the things that really triggered me to stop eating was that each time I eat, I would feel bad. I'd feel so bad. I'd feel like I'm going to pass out. And for a while after I eat, I would just have to sit there and wait until the feeling subside.
So it'd be like bad feeling.
Yes, bad feeling. I didn't have sweat, but the feeling was so bad. I didn't feel like I wanted to vomit or anything. I just had this bad feeling. So many things were happening to me. I had heaviness in my head. I felt like, a heavy weight was on my head, inside my head. It wasn't aching like, you have a migraine, but there was this weight on my head. My ears were ringing and I couldn't sleep. And as I said before, one of the first things that started happening to me was my heart started racing hard. And then at nights, I could not sleep. Not only could I not sleep, but I had to sit up. Right. Because when I lay down, my heart would beat so much faster.
Right. So she couldn't lay flat. That's one of the things that was happening, is that she couldn't lay flat. And when she expressed what was happening, I remember a friend, or the husband of a friend of ours that died in a similar way. he went to do some scan, some test, and he lay down in this lab, lay down, and he got up very quickly, and he says, I can't breathe. He says, I can't breathe.
He was on his back.
Right. He was laying on his back, and he got up quickly, and he said to the lab technician, I can't breathe. If I lay down this way, I can't breathe. And it was just one of those hard stories that really brings anger sometimes when you think about it. But the technician says, "Sir, you must lay down. This is the only way that this can be done." And he said, "But I can't." I said, "You have to lay down." So he did lay down. You know what was the result? He died right on the table. So I remember when she was telling me this about not being able to lay down, that story just flashed back in my mind, and I realized, there's something that was really terrible. And I think she had to take some different steps, and she couldn't actually sleep in the bed. She had to be in a recliner and propped up in a recliner to sleep at night. But continue, my love.
Yes, so it became very, very painful. Every part of my body was having a challenge. I used to have numbness in my feet, numbness in my hands, and to the point where, at this point, I started losing weight rapidly. And I don't think that it's just because I wasn't eating. Something else was causing that. I started losing weight. I got cold easily. I had always had to have long sleeves on when everybody else, just moving around. And I was always cold. And my left hand was always weak, always weak. I would go outside to bend down to do something, and I just had to stop. Because when I bent down, I felt like, I was, it wasn't really dizzy, but something in my head just wasn't right. And I discovered that something was not right with my entire being. I just wasn't myself. And it was getting worse. What was getting worse was the heartbeat, my heart beating so fast. Sometimes I felt like I was going to expire. It was so bad what was happening to so many things happening to me. It was so bad that you know what my husband did? He will tell you. He called my siblings.
Well, things got so terrible. I mean, one night she said, "Come feel my heart." But when I looked at her chest, I could see her clothes just vibrating and I said, I don't have to listen. I could see that there was a vibration on her clothes, which is how hard her heart was beating. I mean, just like you've just run a marathon, and you have that kind of palpitation. So I ended up calling her siblings, and I said, something is because at that time we didn't I didn't know what was taking place. I mean, I probably should have said this from the beginning, that we have been praying. I've prayed over her. My children and I, we have laid hands on her. We're speaking over her, and this thing just seemed to keep going. And so I said, well, you know what? Let me call her siblings. This is unknown to her, and just let them know what is taking place. Because at the rate that I saw things going, I was almost sure that she probably would be dead before her mother's funeral, and especially the fact that they had extended the funeral, because her only sister lived abroad and she would not be able to come until a certain time. So the funeral was postponed for maybe like over a month, right? 6 weeks. So I just let them know something is not right. Things are happening that I'm not sure what is going on. And so I just let them know, because it's the right thing to do. Just say this is happening in the family for them to understand what is taking place. And maybe that was not such a good idea, as my wife will tell you. They intended for her to go check it out.
Right. So, because my husband called them and I did not know, each of them called. My sister called me first, and she was frantic. What's happening to you? You need to go to the doctor. Howard told me, and then my two brothers, they called, and they each of them, they all encouraged me to go to the doctor to check out, to see what was going on. My sister was besides herself. My brothers, they are a little bit more, controlled. My sister, she worries about her siblings, and she was just beside herself. And I said to my husband, why did you do that? But I understand. He wanted to let them know what was happening. And as he mentioned earlier, my heart, it was palpitating so hard, that morning. I said to him, I've never experienced anything like this. I would like to go to the doctor and check it out to see what is causing my heart to behave in this manner.
And let me just say this quickly, that the influence of her going to the doctor was not because of her sibling, because this decision she made actually before I called her sibling. So this was earlier on, before I spoke to the sibling. So it's not like she was influenced by the family to do this. This was just something that was so horrific and so terrible in her experience that she was thinking that maybe, this is something which was a surprise to me. But anyway, continue, my dear.
Yes, so I mentioned to him, because of the intensity of what's going on with my heart, I would like to just go to the doctor, just to check. It's not a case where, I'm going to give in because I know how it is. Just to hear, from him what he thinks might be going on. And so when I told my husband, he'll tell you what his words to me were.
Well, I definitely said to her, that would never be my suggestion. That would never be my suggestion. That would never be something that I would even think of. But I said to her, I said, nevertheless, I'm not a dictator, and I am here to support you in whatever decision you made, and so you make. So she made that decision, and I just told her what I know will happen. Simply that the doctor knows nothing. It's not like the doctor is some magician. He's going to simply check your vitals. He's going to check your heart rate. He's going to check your pulse. He's going to check your look in your eyes and your ears. He's going to give you, he's going to do all of those things. And then he's going to send you to do some tests. Then from these, he'll make an assumption that this could be the possible cause. And I guess, what was it like when you went?
So I would say, I reluctantly made the decision, to go to the doctor. So we went.
And exactly as I said, that's what happened.
Yes, exactly what he said. That's what happened. We went in and he listened to what happened to me, and he said, I'm not sure, maybe, your hormones and what. So here's what we will do. We're going to arrange for you to do a blood test. That's the first of the rabbit hole situation. So I went ahead, we paid this money, and I did the blood test. And they told me that the test will be ready in 5 days. I'll receive a call from them. I will go in, the doctor will review the test and tell me what is going on with me.
Yeah, and I don't think it was so much a blood test, well, but the blood was drawn because the tests that they were doing would be several different things they were checking for in the blood. So we just say blood test, but they asked for several different things to be checked, and all of that came through the blood analysis.
And so, as they said, I think day 4, I think they called my husband. He's the one who received the phone call.
It was in 3 days they called.
Yes, 3 days. They called to say that my blood test results are ready and I can come in to have them reviewed. I decided, based on the encouragement of my family, my husband, I thought of everything and, what will eventually happen. I decided that I will not go back for the test result. My situation did not change. As a matter of fact, my symptoms, they grew worse. But I made a decision. I made a choice that I will not allow what the doctors and those who did the blood test and all of that, I will not allow what he says to me to dampen my spirit, to cause my mind to divert from God, and to choose man's way. I made the decision there and then that I'm going to trust God. I will not go back for the result, for my mind to be tainted, for my mind to be destroyed with what man has to say to me about my condition.
Well, I don't think there was so much of a diagnosis since you didn't go back for the results. So you didn't actually get a diagnosis from the doctor. I think we were talking a little bit about just different things, and he was just mentioning like a few things that maybe like some breadfruit leaf tea, or just a few little things, because I think that doctor was kind of more tend towards a naturalistic perspective of things. But I know that even in all of that, like somebody would say, try this, and she would always be trying different things, like in the herbal side of things, for relief. But there came a time when she just made an end of all of that and made a final decision.
Right. So, as he mentioned that the doctor told me about the breadfruit leaf tea for, what was going on in my head, it is good for if it's high blood pressure or whatever it was. So for a few days, I used the breadfruit leaf tea. And I remember one morning, I was going on my walk, talking to God about my situation and what was happening to me. And I was saying to him, Lord, as soon as I'm finished here, was just talking to him about everything. I said, I will go back and I'll make some breadfruit tea and drink it. I'm praying that it will help with whatever is going on in my head. And as plain as anything, the Lord said to me, don't you think that the breadfruit leaf tea is an alibi for your situation? And man, I was I was very happy that the Lord spoke to me. My spirit was buoyed up and I was encouraged because he's talking to me. I'm listening to him and he spoke to me. He's saying the breadfruit leaf was an alibi, was something that I was holding on to get me through what I was going through. And I decided at that moment that I was going to drop the breadfruit leaf tea and anything else I was doing. I decided at that moment on my walk that I was going to give it all to him. And I just want to say that my situation did not improve after that. It got worse. But when I got back home from the walk and I told my husband and my kids what the Lord said to me and what I decided to do that moment, they gathered around me, anointed me, and prayed for me. And I started feeling a little bit better. But there are other issues that got worse. And as he said earlier, there were times that I felt like I wasn't going to make it. I probably would be buried before my mother. So many things were going on. I remember one night I laid down to sleep. I would talk to the Lord about my heart and I would ask him to do, to keep my heart in a safe place, in a normal place so I could sleep. I remember I laid down one night to sleep. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I saw so many evil heads pointing at me, just going up and down. And I realized that if I opened my eyes, everything would be okay. And if I closed my eyes, I could not sleep because they were all in front of me. And I know, it was the enemy. And for a while, I could not sleep and I cried out to God. I was in a fight. Because you know what happened? I made a decision that I'm going to drop everything I know, everything I heard, and I'm going to trust God. And the enemy, he ramped up the situation. And he started doing things to get me discouraged. But I decided in my heart that God is my healer and I'm going to trust him. So many things. And it was a long battle before I was able to close my eyes and I got a little bit of sleep because it was for many hours during the night and it was almost daylight, but I got a little bit of sleep. And so the victory came in that situation.
Well, there's something I remember that Karleen will do, and that is that she would she would make up the recliner because that's where she had to sleep because she could not lay flat. So she would be reclined, and but she would make up the recliner, like, put her pillows and stuff in it, and then she would come to bed. And so when she comes to bed, if she can't sleep, then she'll go in the recliner. And I remember after making that decision that she was going to give it to God, she didn't make the recliner. One night she didn't make the recliner, and she didn't make it up. She didn't put her sheet and stuff in it. She didn't prepare it. And one of the interesting things is that that was probably an act of faith that was rewarded, because that night that she never made the recliner was the night that she slept like a baby. She came to bed and she slept right through the night. So, I mean, it was we were growing in understanding that the hard part of faith is the perseverance, and to understand that don't set up an alternative that should, in case this doesn't work, then you can rely on that. But the moment that she slept, then another thing happened with her ears and the ringing of her ears.
Right. Yes, thank you for reminding me of that leap of faith there. I decided that I wasn't going to sleep in the recliner. And it's a leap of faith, and God honored it. I went, and as he said, it was one of my best nights. And so the other night I decided that I wasn't going in the recliner. I was going to into my bed. And I went into my bed, and if you know anything about the enemy, he doesn't give up. When you make a decision, he pushes in on you more and more. And I remember I laid down to sleep. My heart was okay. I fell asleep, and then there was this ringing in my ears, terrible. It awoken me from sleep. I could not sleep, and it was just ringing. And I remember I laid still in the bed, like I do many times, and I would talk to my Father, and I would say to him, you told me that I said to him, if everything is going to be well with me, please stop my ears from ringing. No, I did not speak aloud so that anybody or anything could hear me. This was in my mind. I laid still in the bed, just listening to my ears carrying on. And in that moment, I said, Lord, stop my ear from ringing if everything will be well with me. And in less than 2 minutes, everything stopped. My ears stopped ringing completely. And it was another rejoicing moment for me in that wee hours of the night that my Father came through for me again. The tears started trickling down my face because he's awesome. I remember this song. We all know the song. And it, I don't remember it, but I'll say the words and maybe you could you could fit in. And this is the darkest midnight that my soul has ever seen. It's from the song that Jason Crabb did. Before the prayer is answered.
Right.
And I remember this line where it says, this is the darkest midnight that my soul has ever seen. This is one of the darkest midnights, and God heard me, and the ringing in my ears stopped, and I praised him, and I went to sleep for the rest of the night. So it was a hard journey for me. Why was it a hard journey for me? Because I decided to let go of everything that I knew, everything that I could see, everything that I could feel that would be of help to me. I let go of everything, and I decided to trust God, to take him at his word, that if you trust me, if you give me everything, I will come through for you.
And that's one of the beautiful things about your testimony, is the fact that you made a decision not to go the regular route. You went as far as doing your test and all of that. You didn't go back for the result. Actually didn't go for a diagnosis, because there's something that we were talking about, and I was saying to you, once you go for the diagnosis, once your spirit accepts that, then you'll begin to give yourself over to believing the things that the doctor says. And that was my hesitation to do something like that, because I know once you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you a diagnosis, that diagnosis rings in your mind and you begin to identify with it. And so, from encouragement, I was saying this was the reason, and we got a chance to talk about it more when we were waiting for that test result to come. And so, by the time we got the call that the results were ready and that she was supposed to go back, she made a decision: I won't go back. Because I realized that's what happened to us. Most people, talk to most people today, and they'll tell you what they suffer from. And you say, who told you that? You know where the answer comes from. The doctor said, that's my diagnosis. I have this. That's what they tell you. I have cancer. I have diabetes. I have heart problems. I have this and I have this. And that was simply based on the words of a person. So what if we should take the words of Jesus instead of taking the words of the doctors and these people that give diagnoses? Do you think that the word of Jesus is as valuable? Do you think the word of Jesus can be ingested like the words of the doctor? Or do you think Jesus doesn't know as much as the doctor? I mean, that's actually what we'd say when you actually do the final analysis of it all. But the beautiful perspective and why I asked her to share her story is that after all of these things, which were all, I mean, we didn't know half of the things that we now know, but now you can reflect back and recognize it was that causes all of these symptoms, because of that was being placed on people who were not. And yeah, so this was what happened with your cousin as well, and the same cousin that was hugging her. Yeah.
Yes, and so I remember one night, my brother called. They would check on me often to find out how I am doing, and they were there. They were
I think
so
at that time you had some tension in your
Yes,
head.
that's what. Yes, and they were very patient. My siblings, because I'm the oldest of the four, and they would call and they say, "Have you gone to the doctor?" And then I said, "Well, no." And I remember when my brother called this particular night, and he called to check upon me to see, to find out how I'm doing. And of my siblings, of my three siblings, this brother, he more leans to trusting in God. He more understands if I say to him, this is what I'll do. He understands, because he understands the system and, what happens there. So I remember he called me and he, wanted to find out how I was doing and if I had gone to the doctor. And, I remember, this boldness came over me and I said to him, tell me, why do you think I should take my life, my situation, out of the hand of God and place it in the hands of the physician? I can't do that. And he said, I understand. And friends, I can tell you, as soon as I made that declaration to him, the stiffness that was going on in my head, this heaviness, it just popped. And like everything melted and everything came back to normal. And that is how my situation started improving. Everything that was going on with me, I declared over it. And I know that it's because I testified of my faith in God, as opposed faith in the doctors and the system and all of that he rewarded my faith again. And I just want to say that when you trust God completely, absolutely, it is His pleasure to show Himself strong and mighty in your life.
Amen. Amen. Well, that is the truth, and that was something that we both experienced. That was something that I was a part of, seeing it happen as it happened, and I even remember the just some things that you just couldn't explain. Like at one time she could sleep on her left side but not on her right side, and then it switched around and she could sleep on the right side but not on the left side. I mean, the different things that really happened. But in all of it, it was faith in God. It was just trust in God. And I realized this. You've probably heard me say this before, that the hard part of faith is persevering. The hard part of faith is the fight. That's the hard part. It's just knowing that this is the reality and just walking in it, regardless of what you see, regardless of what you feel, regardless of what you hear around you. It's just knowing that I'm putting my trust in God. No more ripe breadfruit leaf tea, no more whatever other thing, whatever it was. I mean, there was so many different people who had their different suggestions. I mean, I remember people were telling her that maybe it was her wisdom tooth that was giving that issue. I mean, just different things that
Overwhelming.
just and I realized that one morning that she made a decision that she's going to give it all to Jesus. That was when things actually started turning, and
It wasn't
Jesus.
without a fight because things ramped up,
Yes,
until it started getting better.
right. Well, and that's what we have proven over and over again, that once you turn the way of Christ, most times things get worse. Most times things increase for the worst. But again, perspective is persevering. All right. So thank you so much for joining us again on this series of testifying of His power. And here is my challenge to you. Do you have a story? Do you have a testimony of what God has done in your life? Then maybe your story could be next. So why don't you reach out to us as we put the information on the screen later on? Just reach out to us and let us know that you're willing to share a story. You're willing to share with us and to testify of the power of God. And we will make an arrangement. We'll arrange a meeting, whether or not you're in our country or in another country. We'll arrange with you to have a virtual meeting where you can give your testimony. All right. So thank you so much, Karleen.
It was my pleasure.
Yes, I don't know if you have any final words that you wanted to share before we close.
Just to say that the heart of God rejoices. And God finds pleasure in His children testifying of His goodness to them when we give our all to Him. So I encourage you today, whatever you may be going through, give it all to Him, and I guarantee you He will come through for you.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, so there you have it, folks. Another testimony of the wonderful power of God at work in the life of His people. And it is happening today. This is not something that happened in the past or in ancient times. And it's a testimony that God is alive and well today, and that you can trust Him with your circumstance, with your situation, that you may feel that you're going through things that nobody has ever been through. It's not true. God says, Jesus says that He is able to, because of what He suffered and went through, He's able to succor those who comes to Him. So I'm giving you an encouraging word to give it all to Him. All right? So thank you so much for being with us today, and see you on the next one. God bless.